Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of Claremont, Tuesday the 30th of June 2026. In accordance with Regulation 14L of the Local Government Administration public caution against taking any action as a result of a council decision tonight until such time as the minutes of the meeting are published or have been advised in writing by the council's administration with regard to any particular decision. And it's for that reason elected members are asked to ensure the use of their microphones for the purposes of the recording. Item 1, we declare the meeting open at 7 connection with Lake Claremont. Item 2, recording of attendance and apologies. Approve refrain in the gallery from any particular response, just like we will as well. Mr. Reg Bateman from Claremont. Thank you, Mr. Bateman.
Thanks for the opportunity. The unfortunate news is I live on a busy road. I addressed the council on the 26th of May where traffic data was made public, council traffic data was made public. Examples given were, some of them were, there were 1,421 vehicles in a 7-day period travelling 60 to 70, 170 vehicles at 70 to 80, 5 vehicles at 150 to 160, and 77 vehicles were travelling more than 90 kilometres an hour in a 50-kilometre zone. My question is,
of the approved treatment of the requires a 2 prohibiting planting against these clauses 2.1c, 2.8, 2b3 and 210b, and how it approved the
basis, having regard to the relevant legislative framework and the circumstances of the
if you require further information. Thank you. Question 5.
Question 5. The March 2026 amendment of policy EN 302 introduced a new definition. What evidence, legal advice or policy analysis form the basis for introducing the amendments, and how does the town now conclude that there is
Thank you. Mr. Kavanagh, CEO.
As mentioned previously, the definition is consistent with the local law, in this case, the Activities and Thoroughfares and Public Place Local Law of 2003.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanagh, for your questions. Public statement time. Item 6. Now calling Mr. Warren Lillyman of Claremont, please.
I just wish to add a few personal experiences. Briefly, the Claremont Shopping Centre development and the introduction of restricted parking in Thompson Road and the western half of Bernard Street has meant up to 8 to 10 vehicles parked for 8 to 10 hours per working day in Scott Street, all on the western side. Over the past 10 months, I've needed for parking on our verge at a complete right angle to the road. Was on the wrong side of the road due to the usual 8 to 10 cars parked on the western side of Scott Street. The driver decided to seek an alternative route rather than drive over 18 Bernard Street's verge. It was a Claremont Council vehicle. Any further town centre and Stirling Highway developments really need to provide adequate parking for employees. I can understand why they park in Scott Street. It's free. The debris, just a little been seen on the eastern side, let alone the western side. And it's now June the 30th. The western side of Scott Street hasn't been swept for the last 3 years due to the usual 8 to 10 vehicles parking each working day on the western side. Thank you.
Thank you
for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lillyman. Thanks for coming to the chambers.
Okay.
Now calling Mr. Andy Collins, please, of Claremont. Mr. Collins, just a reminder if this is the first. I saw you warming up over there.
I thought I was a professional. But
Okay, there we go.
regarding item 13.4 area of the Lake Claremont Dog Exercise Area. Dog off-lead areas promote a community, which is a great. The dog park could be made even better. Council data has 1,430 registered dogs in the town. RSPCA survey states 55% of WA and 49% of Australia homes have a dog, an increase of 20% in the last 10 years. With the push for infill and increased housing densities resulting in the subsequent explosion and in particular on dog exercise areas. Scotch College has restricted access for off-lead dogs and may well increase the restrictions in the future. I'm going to use the survey diagram identifiers from the council's survey in the following. The current dog off-lead area 3 to work. Big energetic dogs like to run around, and they can take up a lot of space. This makes it difficult for other people in this narrow space to avoid these dogs if their own dogs are timid or old or simply don't want to play. By extending the dog off-lead area to the west, it would alleviate this bottleneck and provide a space for all types of dogs. Because this area is so narrow and well used, the grass is now showing severe signs of wear and tear. By expanding the area, the usage would spread this over a wider area. Of Area 3 be extended to a line perpendicular with the northern end of Elliott Road, making it easier for dogs and owners to recognise the start of the off-leash area when parking in that cul-de-sac. Number 2 would divide the current on-lead area 4 in half along its north-south axis, allowing a 50-metre buffer to the path and the fence on the western side. The boundary would be anchored at the northern end by a landmark tree and follow the line of the fence, maintaining this same width buffer, curving around at the southern end, resulting in an area substantially narrower at the southern end than what is shown. And other social activities such as dog off-lead areas. According to WA's EPA, a minimum buffer of 50 metres should be provided from the wetland edge or its fringing vegetation. There is 50 metres from the wetland edge to the fence along the footpath currently. Habitat pockets, there is already a fence. I applaud the effort of the council staff in doing the survey, especially as it rained most days. I would suggest that the numbers were down 50% on normal. 180 birds in Area 4 versus 60 reported in adjacent Area 3 does not recognise the difference in land areas, 4 being approximately 2 times the area of 3 in the diagram. We recognise there may be an impact by dogs to bird frequency, but maintain it is of much smaller impact than implied by the raw numbers, and could be further explained by Area 4 being bordered by bushland or open space on 3 sides and the lake on the other, whereas 3 is bordered by houses, children's playground and a car park on 2 sides. We are proposing another 50-metre zone for on-lead dogs in addition to the current 50 metres from the EPA. The proposed area is underutilised and is mown grass and trees, not used by many people or by the enjoyment of the community.
Now calling Mr. Peter Chadwick of Claremont, please.
Dog leash area in Lake Claremont. My name is Peter Chadwick. I'm speaking on behalf of Graham Potter of 34A Servator Street, Swanbourne. I knew Graham from the times I'd walk my dog down to Lake. Unfortunately, Graham passed away in April, so he's unable to be here himself. But he did pass on his notes to me so that I could represent his proposal to the council today. The off-lead area at Lake Claremont is a magnet for owners. We're drawn to this common place where our dogs run freely, we meet people, and we make friends. That's how I met and became friends with Graham. Lake Claremont is probably the best The current layout does present issues of, number one, limited parking access. The Lakeway Street car park is oversubscribed at busy times, and there's concentrated wear to the environment where the grass is worn out, as Andy had said. Graham suggested in his hand-drawn map that the off-lead area be extended southwards to Elliott Road and westwards in the direction of Lake Claremont. These areas are predominantly grassland, so not suited to ground-based wildlife. And a further buffer area, which we propose to be retained, and these areas are underutilised at the moment. Council approval is sought not on the grounds that better use for the community. The choice appears to be between providing a public use for the lands or leaving them idle as is. Extension southwards to Elliott Road opens a second point of access where owners can park their cars before walking their dog, thereby reducing the burden upon the Lakeway Street car park. It opens alternate walking options, thereby reducing the wear to the grassland caused by that congestion at Lakeway Street. And there would be a clear boundary for the area by aligning with the existing goalposts. Using an obvious landmark as a boundary reduces the risk that walkers mistakenly go off-piste with consequent fines and penalties. The extension to Elliott Street is located along the park boundary very good as is. The area could be made better by making use of the adjacent land, which is not otherwise gainfully employed. No change is sought to the established grassland, bushes or trees. As it is today. Elliott Road would add a new access point and reduce demand for the limited parking space at Lakeway Street. The new access point would reduce the wear and tear caused by that congestion at Lakeway Street, particularly when coupled with the westward extension, shown as Area 4 on the map, which creates options for circular walks originating from Elliott Road that would avoid the Lakeway Street bottleneck altogether. This would spread out use of the existing off-lead Area 3, which the survey showed to be both narrow and the most frequented. So in summary, there's a chance to make use of otherwise idle land to increase the amenity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chadwick, and Graham Potter as well. Now calling Ms Martha Kavanagh of Claremont, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the petition regarding the policy EN 302 road verges. Before I begin, I would like to briefly outline how we arrived here because the sequence of events is important. For almost 18 years, the public verges adjoining the strata property, our strata property, was shared without an issue. In August 24, a mature tree was removed without all the strata owners being consulted, despite the town's own consultation requirements. A few months later, an oversized tree protection zone was installed, substantially restricting use of the public verge. In May 25, a dispute arose over shared verge use, followed by a petition from the front lot owners asking the town to remove its shared verge approach. When Council considered that petition in June 25, it did not support either the front or the rear property having control of the verge at the expense of the other, and that the Council should take no further action, but local law review. As part of the parking local law review. However, substantially restricted practical use of the verge. Not only to retain the interpretation of EN 302, but also to adopt another policy, L parking. It is this sequence of events and the questions it raises about transparency, consistency and policy development that brings us before you tonight. The petition was signed by 41 residents. The town says 30 verified residents. I'm not sure why the other 11 weren't verified, as I understand the petition is signed as district electors. Anyway, this petition is not about opposing verge landscaping, urban greening or the protection of our precious tree canopy. It is about how the public land is managed and whether significant policy changes have been made fairly, transparently and with appropriate community consultation. The Activities on Thoroughfares and Public Places Local Law 2003 establishes the legal framework for verge treatments. Policy EN 302 is intended to guide the administration of that law. However, the March 2026 amendment did more than simply clarify existing wording. Yet the officer's report does not explain why a new definition was required, what issue it was intended to resolve, why the local law required the additional interpretation, or whether alternative approaches were considered. The report also concludes that the town's approach is consistent with local government practice across Western Australia, but provides no examples or evidence to support that conclusion. Councillors are therefore being asked to accept the statement without the benefit of any comparative analysis. The report also recommends adopting a new verge parking policy, LV 173. That policy adopts the same interpretation of adjacent that lies at the heart of this petition. Rather than resolving the concerns raised by the residents, Council is now asked to embed the same interpretation into a second policy. This is or rear property having control of a verge at the expense of the other property, and that where neighbours were in dispute, the town would not recommend restricting the use of shared verge to one party. Council then resolved occupier of the front lot in a battle axe development may exercise control over verge parking authorisations, including during the Royal Show and other high-impact park owners, visitors, service people and the like supposed to park in that situation. From the petitioner's perspective, that appears difficult to reconcile with the advice provided by Council only 12 months ago. The officer's report does not explain what changed, what findings emerged from the review requested by Council, or why the position previously presented to Council has been replaced by one that appears to allocate practical control of a public verge to one property in a battle axe development. These are not minor administrative matters. They go to the consistency rear lot owners. It is asking Council to choose between policy-based evidence and policy-based assumptions. The petitioners are not seeking special treatment. We are seeking consistency, transparency and confidence that policies affecting public land are developed openly, supported by evidence and informed by residents they affect. Accordingly, we respectfully ask the Council to not confirm policy EN 302 in its current form, removes the March 2026 amendment introducing the definition of adjacent frontage, including the specific provisions relating to battle axe developments. Refer any proposed amendments back for a proper review, supported by clear evidence, transparent reasoning and meaningful communication and consultation with affected residents before any revised policy is considered by Council, and not adopt the proposed LV 137 while it relies upon the same disputed interpretation of adjacent that is subject of this petition.
Thank you, Mrs. Kavanagh.
This approach would give Council the opportunity to restore community confidence by ensuring that any future policy affecting the management of public verges is developed openly, evidence-based and with genuine community engagement. Beggars belief. One has to ask why the town administration and councillors would choose to effectively give one property control over public space, in this case a road verge, is managed while neighbouring residents who also rely on the verge have little or no opportunity for input.
Please take your seat.
Public verges are more than just strips of land beside a road. They are shared public assets that contribute and everybody functioning in our community. We respectfully ask you to spend more than a few minutes
Item 7, applications for leave of absence. Councillor Franklin seeking leave of absence on the 25th of August 2026, which is scheduled as an ordinary council meeting that day. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved, Councillor Main. Seconded, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? Passed. No dissent. Carried. No dissent. Item 8. Petitions, deputations. Nil. Item 9. Moved. Yep. Councillor Swan, seconded. Deputy Mayor Kelly. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 10, there is a confidential matter for which the meeting will be closed. 78.1.1, objection of council decision. Item 11, business not dealt with from a previous meeting. Nil. Item 12, reports of committees. 12.2.1, minutes of the Claremont Town Centre Advisory Committee held on the 12th of May 2026. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved Councillor Swan, seconded Councillor Franklin. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. 12.3.1, minutes of the Foreshore Advisory Committee meeting held on the 21st of May 2026. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved Councillor Main, seconded Councillor Swan. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 13, report to the CEO. 13.1.1, list of payments 1 to 31st of May 2026. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved Deputy Mayor Kelly, seconded Councillor Swan. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. 13.1.2, monthly statement of financial activity for the period ended 31st of May 2026. Mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Cameron, seconded Councillor Fernandez. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 13.1.3, the 2026-27 amendment, or the officer's suggested amendment, that item 4 be amended to read, adopts the schedule of fees and charges for 26-27 as shown attachment 2. And installation of a replacement. And the second, moved Deputy Mayor Kelly and seconded Councillor Cameron. Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We can't have a discussion or a debate about this year's budget without identifying the fact that it is a year of revaluation. Value applied to every property within the town, and that's actually across the whole of the metropolitan area every 3 years. Now that figure is the figure that we use in order to multiply the cents and the dollar which we determine in relation to our collection of rates. The total GOV value in the town of Claremont over the last 3 years has gone up by 22.45%. Across the municipality. So as a result of that, we need to reduce the rate in the dollar that we apply to that total valuation, which is 19. So we lower the rate in the dollar to generate the amount of income that we require. We calculate the amount of income we require from rates on the basis of our strategic and community plan, our corporate business plan, and our long-term financial plan. And we determined that, well, this budget determines that we need a revenue of about $19.6 million coming from rates. Now, it's important to recognise that almost 50% of that rate revenue goes straight to salaries, so that our discretionary spend and our capital works and our maintenance upgrades is the residual of that. So, in relation to that, the spend of that, that additional 50%, or the other 50%, there are significant aspects to this budget. I think this is going to be the last year we will be spending upgrades on the footpath for the replacement of the paving slabs with the in-situ concrete. I think that's in the order of about $250,000. There's $140,000 spend on the aquatic centre, $120,000 on the depot relocation, drainage $400,000, $170,000 on right-of-ways, and that's pretty well known now that we're getting to the end of our slab replacement for footpaths with in-situ concrete, and we've now developed a position to move forward in terms of dealing with laneways, which has been a significant issue for this town for a number of years, both the ownership and the management and the surfacing and drainage of those laneways. There's $650,000 for building works and $1.7 million for roads. So that is a very quick summary of the spend of our rate revenue. It's also important to note that this year we've paid off one of our 3 loans. So our outstanding loan balance moving into the next financial year is about $3.5 million. But in terms of the ratio to our asset value, our reserve fund, we've got about $8 million, slightly less than $8 million in reserve. So that ratio is well below 1, which of course is an incredibly privileged position to be in. So look, and this also doesn't account for any carry forward that may accrue as a result of the finalisation of the expenditure for the a reasonable carry forward, which will be rolled into next year's budget and what we choose to do. On average, of course, the net increase in revenue compared with the 25-26 year is 5.5%. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, given my earlier comments about the gross rental value, that everybody's rates will go up exactly 5.5%. Depending on the adjustment of your GRV, that will vary and it won't necessarily be 5.5%. For example, if your current GRV is $52,000, which is $1,000 a week rent revenue, as estimated by the Valuer General's office, and your GRV has gone up to 65 and somebody else has gone up from 52 to 54, then obviously they will have a lower increase in rates than those that have had a significant increase in their GRV. And that may also include, of course, capital works or renovations or improvements that they've done to their property during that 3-year period as well. So that's another factor that comes into play during the revaluation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kelly. Councillor Cameron.
What's left to say?
You've got 5 minutes.
Look, this is a result of a lot of work from the administration. I'd like to thank them for that. There's been several budget workshops that councillors have attended, and of course we had the special budget meeting earlier this month. So this is the culmination of all of that, and I would just like to thank the administration for the work they've put in, and I would commend this budget. Thank you.
Anyone like to speak against? I have to ask the question. Anyone like to speak for? No? I'd like to speak for. I believe that this budget is about responsible delivery. It manages the impacts on households, keeps Claremont financially disciplined, and responds to the community by investing in the places, infrastructure and everyday services people have directly told us about. As Deputy Mayor Kelly said, the headline rate figure is not necessarily going to be everybody's household reality. There's a significant reinvestment back into Claremont, circa $4.5 million invested back into infrastructure, roads, paths, drainage, buildings and community infrastructure. That's about 22.5% of our budget reinvested back into our community. So I said this budget responds directly to the community. We're acting on the projects residents have raised with us, including the Bayview Community Centre upgrade, Anzac Cottage and recognition of Claremont's service through the 44th. Lives the everyday presentation and social life of the town. Residents want Claremont Town Centre, Claremont Park, the museum and also Lake Claremont. It's practical, disciplined and future focused. We're not just maintaining assets with that investment, we're also planning for the next decade, including Lake Claremont, the Aquatic Centre Precinct, Claremont Park, importantly, Swanbourne Town Centre planning, right-of-way design and long-term workforce planning. In closing, thank you. Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 13.1.4, Annual Review of Council Delegations. And if I may, we'll also move this with the officer's suggested amendment that the officer's recommendation include additional point 5, which reads, notes that the delegations DA 2.2.1, DA 2.2.2 and DA 2.2.3 will be further reviewed with the outcomes presented to Council for consideration no later than October 2026. So I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved Councillor Swan and seconded Deputy Mayor Kelly. Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an important, largely a housekeeping exercise where we clean up the register and align it with current legislation. I'm supportive of the officer recommendations as presented. This is a central board tidy-up of our delegations register, consolidating where we can, removing provisions that are not required to be delegated and making sure our authorised officers have the powers to do what they need to do their jobs well. I'm happy to move this recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Seconded. Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, just to focus a little bit on the amendment, I think there are some corrections that need to be undertaken in relation to those, well, at least two of those policies are delegations. So I think it's appropriate they be referred back well, not referred back, but not be included and come back for further consideration.
Thank you. Anyone want to speak against? Anyone want to speak for? We'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. 13.1.5, appointment of the Deputy of the Presiding Member to the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee. A mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Cameron, seconded Councillor Fernandez. Councillor Cameron.
The Act to restrict those that can chair a meeting of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee to 2 people, one of whom is not required to attend any meetings. When I canvassed this position to several professionals, they all laughed, particularly given the nature of this particular committee. That said, I believe the chosen candidate is suitably qualified, and I thank them for putting their hand up, and I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Fernandez?
Nothing further to add.
Great. Thank you. Anyone against? I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 13.1.6, Chief Executive Officer Performance Review Committee. I'll now call for nominations. Are there any nominations? Councillor Franklin.
Could I nominate Councillor Suan and Councillor Gertzi?
Yes, would Councillor Swan, do you accept?
Yes, happy to accept, thank you.
Councillor Gertzi, do you accept?
Yes, I accept, but I'm happy if someone else wants to.
Well, we'll take that as an acceptance at this point, given we've got one more councillor. Are there any other? Well, there we go. Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. You accept? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kelly. Okay, so let's move it with the insertion of those three councillors, please. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Cameron, seconded Deputy Mayor Kelly. We'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Thank you. Leave the yellow notepads where they are. Okay, don't touch them. 13.1.7, Privacy and Responsible Information Sharing. Have a mover and a seconder. Moved Deputy Mayor Kelly. Seconded Councillor Brown. Deputy Mayor Kelly. No? Okay. Councillor Brown? No? Okay. Let's move it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. 13.1.8, Response to Petition Review Council Policy EN 302, Road Verges. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved Councillor Cameron.
I've found it difficult to. I've got to a conclusion, but I found it difficult to get there. Basically, I can understand both parties, both the Battle Act. I simply went back to the legislation, and it's my view that the issue occurs because one of the legislation, the verge legislation, refers to abuts, uses the word abuts, and the other legislation, with regards to parking, uses the word adjacent. And I think that's where the issue lies. I think abuts is clearly defined under and has a I approve of the administration's recommendations. I think it's important to remember that over the years we've had very, very few and clear law that defines what happens should there be a dispute. And currently, I think, without putting a definition of adjacent out there, which is what the policy does, I think it would be difficult to come to a solution. So I think what this does of that or not, I think is another issue. But the legislation exists, and what we've been required to do is define it. Without defining it, it just creates a bit of a legal quagmire, in my opinion. So to that extent, I am prepared to accept the administration's recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Mayne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Granted, Councillor Cameron. And this policy does have for Stirling and South Perth. The reason it seems is that the part of the problem is how do you share a verge if these neighbours are in disagreement, as Councillor Cameron said. Many have used these shared verges in the past. We've had battle axes for, well, since the 60s at least. But it seems that you just don't know where it would end when there is a drama. The other thing about a verge is the front resident in most of Perth, the verge is a part of their aesthetic. Even though the council owns the verge, so we're going to decide what is going to happen with it, the aesthetic is important, and traditionally that owner has put in the reticulation, maintained it, and now, especially in Claremont, have added verge plants. The watered street trees, which are so important to us, the green plantings, and that aesthetic qualities that we really appreciate. And the greater density in Claremont is taking away back gardens. The back gardens are being replaced by triplexes and duplexes. So our front verge is becoming the most important green space Claremont has. So I think that that's important, and I do understand that bins are allowed on the front verge of all the people behind. And it's very sad when neighbours can't cooperate. I just feel very lucky that I live in a street where everyone shares their verge. We've got a new neighbour that's just put in a whole verge right around the corner of plants, and she just says, "Can I just chuck this fridge on your lawn until the pickup?" You know, and I go, "Yeah, no worries, glass of wine later." You know, and it's nice when that can happen, but in other cases we need a policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor May, anyone like to speak against the officer's recommendation? Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Mr. Mayor, I have a procedural motion to refer the item back. You need a seconder.
Seconded. Councillor Fernandez.
And the reason being to review the interface between EN 302 and LB 137 and review council's respective policy positions.
Okay. Yep. Seconded. Councillor Fernandez. Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, there's an old adage, and that is, when you're in a hole, stop digging. I think this is very confusing. It's something it's a position we've got ourselves into over the last 6 to 9 months, and I think what we're now seeing is a conflation of our local law and our policy positions that don't necessarily match. There are a large number of residents in this town that are unaware that if you happen to live on the street frontage of a unit development or a battle axe development, then you have no say over what happens on your verge. Now, I don't think that's a good position to be in, and I don't want to anoint the front property owner as necessarily being totally responsible for the verge. The verge is actually council property. And the best way of resolving issues, as I think Councillor Mayne perhaps inadvertently referred to, and that is let them sort it out for themselves. The last thing I want is for council to try to adjudicate as to who can put their green waste on the verge, who's responsible for the reticulation on the verge, whose rubbish tin goes where on the verge. That should be a community matter to be decided amongst the respective property owners. I don't think it's a space where council should move into personally, so that's why I want to refer it back to do some more work. And I probably support some of the comments that were made tonight, and that is, the item suggests that every council, or particularly in the metropolitan area, probably every council actually has the same policy. I'm not so sure about it. If that is the case, I'm happy to accept the fact, and maybe we continue to run with it. But I do think that it needs more reflection by the council, by the administration.
We'll put it to the vote. Cameron. Pardon? Against, sorry. Against, yeah. And Councillor Mayne? Yep. 4. Against, sorry, against. We're referring it back to yeah. Procedure motion. Okay. Thank you. 13.1.9. Response to petition requesting 2-hour parking in Scott Street, Claremont. A mover and a seconder. Moved. Deputy Mayor Kelly, seconded Councillor Franklin. Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and we've had a presentation tonight. It's clear that as more development occurs in the town centre and there's more business and activity in the town centre, that parking starts to seep through to the surrounding residential areas. It's reaching pretty significant levels in many areas, and particularly close to the town centre, and in my area in particular also around Bethesda and the school area. There's more parking. Significant pressure along Stirling Highway close to the town centre. Now, one of the problems with introducing it is, of course, it's, I was going to say bracket creep, but that's a taxation term, but probably parking creep, and that is that, they can't park in Scott Street anymore, but they'll go to the next one. So it is an issue we're going to have to continue to deal with, but I think in this case it's pretty clear that it's a serious issue there, so I think I'm happy to support it.
Okay. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo the reasons given by Deputy Mayor Kelly. It's something we're just going to have to keep dealing with. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? We'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. (13.4.1) Response to petition review Lake Claremont dog exercise area. A mover and a seconder. Moved, Councillor Mayne. Seconded, Councillor Brown. Councillor Mayne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am moving I'm moving this without speaking for it. I'm speaking against it. This off-lead area is one of the most popular walking sections in our town, and since its inception, it's separated dogs from bikes and other walkers on the shared path. The main evidence of crowding and increased use is the bearer sways in winter, and it's exacerbated by the narrow shape of the dog off-lead area. The width has got narrower as plantings and logs have been added over the years. Having said that, the plantings and logs have been more than welcomed. Many walkers and dog owners would like to keep a wider berth from other dogs and people. Trees and bush plantings can still be added to the new area and are welcomed. At the moment, though, it's predominantly grass expanses in the area that has been requested. There's no reason the whole newly proposed area couldn't have trees to trees and lots of things that attract cockatoos. There's no reason it can't be completely planted out. It's just dogs off lead underneath. Adding a lot more canopy to Claremont and a cool walkway for walkers in summer. It's mentioned that there's Mount Claremont Oval, but it's unfenced and it's really unsafe for dogs. And we've seen many Mount Claremont dog owners walking across at the lights because there's a park there, but it's just the best place to walk dogs in the Claremont area and Nedlands, where Mount Claremont is. And it's not just that; it's one of the most active social gathering spots in the town. Apart from the coffee shop, the tea box where people gather, this is where people gather and meet and know and get to know each other. And they have Christmas drinks down there. And at this moment, I'd also like to mention Graham Potter, who was the most delightful man who lived by himself and met other people. He was very, very shy and quiet. I didn't even know he was dying. And he was just one of these guys that just loved this area so much. And he was typical of a whole lot of older important places we have. And when when council first put it as a dog whole golf course, so it's become from nothing to 400 dogs or whatever, a whole lot of dogs. Hole is a mountain. Sorry, community space, and it's got 70 acres and 70 hectares, and I think there should be room for everybody within that space. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm going to be extremely unpopular with this one, but I do love dogs, and I've had dogs, all my life growing up. So this isn't about dogs and no dogs. I guess for me, I'm supporting this recommendation. It still is a dog area. There's nothing stopping keeping people on the lead. The parking still exists there. Off lead, on lead. The parking is still there, and you still have access to walk your dog from that area. And I guess Councillor Mayne did touch on it. What is missing on that map is the large purple dot to the north, which is Mount Claremont Oval, which is an off-leash area. The dogs can't, I guess, define what a road is. How are they going to define, I guess, for me, I've got young children. Having that more than 50 metres buffer is great, particularly on bikes and when they're playing in the park. And the creep, for me, where will it stop? I think it'll just keep going. Dogs are welcome there. Dogs are welcome, with the lead in a safe way. So for me, that's why I am supporting this recommendation.
The recommendation. Councillor Gertie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm speaking against the recommendation.
And I also just wanted to acknowledge Graham Potter as well. He passed away quite suddenly, but the fact that he got 473 signatures for this petition indicates to me the high regard in which he was held by the dog park community. So the lake uses of the park, including dog walkers, and also to balance the needs of park users with environmental protection. So this petition is ensuring that this balance is respected by ensuring that the proposed expanded dog off-lead area still provides a buffer to other park users and also a buffer to the environmentally sensitive areas. The petition is asking for the dog off-lead area to be expanded into the currently underutilised area to the west and south of the existing area. So Graham's beautifully hand-drawn map, which was part of the petition, is quite deceptive as it's not to scale. So if you think of the south of the Lakeway Street car park, if you think of the old golf course, which I can still remember when it was a golf course, so thinking there were 3 fairways side by side. So currently the easternmost fairway is the current dog off-lead. That still leaves the westernmost old fairway as a buffer zone, and then you come to the path, and then you come to the fence. So the buffer zone is 50 metres, which I think is adequate separation to the other park users, especially those people that are using the path. And it's obviously a very adequate buffer to the native habitat because that area is behind the fence. To the south of the area, Area 3 in the map, the logical start of the off-lead area, as has already been mentioned tonight, is the end of Elliott Road where the goalposts are. This would enable people to park in Elliott Road and still be able to enter the dog park off-lead area immediately with their dog. The new boundary would be approximately 100 metres to the children's playground and the tee box area, and so that would still provide a very adequate buffer and would still ensure safety at the children's playground. Having extra parking at Elliott Road would also help alleviate the congestion at the Lakeway Street car park. So a recent dog count was done in the area to determine the usage, and it found that about 400 dogs were using the total area, with the Area 3, the narrow area, being the most used area. 400 dogs might sound like a lot in a week, but the count that was carried out was actually carried out there every day, dashing between showers, and the numbers were substantially as the Oval and in St Quentin's Avenue, and this is going to put more pressure on the dog park. I've been walking the dog down there for 10 years, and the density that as was mentioned before, Scotch College is also now limited, so there's restricted access at Scotch College, which is also putting more pressure on this area. And so the more and more congested.
So dogs don't walk in straight lines. They don't walk up and down in straight lines like you're swimming in a pool. Dogs run around. They chase other dogs, they chase balls, they chase frisbees, and this means that if you've got a group of dogs, they're taking up a lot of space in the area. I've got an old dog, and she doesn't like dogs running past her and playing with her. She doesn't like big enthusiastic dogs jumping on her, and so I have to walk down the fringes of that area to try and avoid the bouncy enthusiastic dogs. So by expanding the off-lead area into the underutilised area to the west, this would enable dogs and people to have more space to move in. And be in other areas and move away from the big energetic puppies. It's open mown lawn, and there's no cover for native animals. The native animals that do venture into that area are from the dogs. However, if anything, the dogs are at risk from the birds, especially swooping magpies. So I don't think there's any risk to birds or fauna in this area. As it was mentioned before, the proposed area will remain exactly as it is now, with lawn and trees. Community, and just as one have it, because we have a good park already, doesn't mean that we can't make it even better. So I'm not supporting the officer recommendation, and if the officer recommendation is not successful, then I'm just moving now that I'll move an alternative motion. The alternative motion to support the petition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gertie, for that summation. Anyone like to speak in favour of the officer's recommendation? Anyone like to speak against at this point? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the number of signatures on this petition, I feel there needs to be a very good reason to object to it. The objections mainly involve unruly and uncontrolled dogs, and they're inappropriate. Using the off-lead areas are responsible. It's those letting their dogs off-lead in on-lead areas causing the complaints. I'm very sympathetic to Councillor Brown's issues with off-lead dogs on that path when you've got a bicycle or another dog on the lead, and you're deliberately walking a dog on the lead around there because it doesn't socialise with the dogs in the off-lead area, and you've got people letting their dogs off-lead. You've got nowhere to go. I think we need to be enforcing that. The areas. In future, I would like the Council to consider an appropriate fence around the off-lead area, as this would protect wildlife, playground and path users and on-lead dog owners from any inappropriate off-lead behaviour. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll put it. All those in... Okay. Councillor Swan.
Yeah. I'll keep it short. Thank
Sure.
you, Mr.
No
Mayor.
problem.
Connection. And two things that I think are very important for social connection are dogs, because, I mean, dogs are fantastic, and the opportunity to connect with other people who love dogs in a safe environment. As been mentioned, there is a buffer for where the off-lead dogs can roam. I walk my mum's little dog who is very antisocial. There must always be a lead, and as with Councillor Cameron, I get more annoyed with people who have dogs off-lead on an on-lead zone. So I actually think expanding this area will encourage people to go to the right allocated zone and hopefully do the right thing. And I also just would like to make a comment, and I was very touched by Mr Chadwick's statement on behalf of Mr Potter. Thank you very much for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll put it. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Brown. All those against? Okay. The officer's recommendation is lost. Councillor Gertie.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. So I'd like to move an alternative motion, which hopefully will be on the screen. Okay, so the alternate motion.
Just excuse me for a moment, Councillor Gertie.
Yes, yes, Mr Pearson. So the where is it? This one here. So yes, the one with the 4 points.
Councillor Franklin.
Area to include the existing area to approximately 50 metres from the footpath around the lake, and an area south of the existing area to an area alongside Elliott Road as depicted below. So I presume that's the map, yeah. Number 2, delineates the revised alignments through the planting of additional trees and the placement of logs on the proposed western boundary. 3, to assure effective enforcement, relocates the existing signage to appropriate new locations to ensure the park users are informed additional funds required to the effect of the above changes of $22,000 in the mid-year budget review deliberations.
Thank you, Councillor Gertie, and Councillor Franklin is seconding that. Councillor Gertie.
Yes, so I've said most of what I want to say already. I'm very supportive of additional planting of trees to help delineate the boundary and make it quite clear what the boundary is. But the boundary has basically been drawn along the old tree line of that central fairway. And so it's fairly well delineated already, and I'm very much in favour of filling that line in with additional trees. But the reasons given are the reasons that you've seen. Lake Clermont is used as a dog walking circuit, so it's much more interesting to be able to walk around the park with your dog and do a whole can do a loop rather than just walking straight up and down. Other reasons are that it would reduce the pressure and the congestion on Lakeway Street in terms of parking, so it would encourage alternative parking down at Elliott Road. And I think that's very valid because in the early mornings and the late afternoon, Lakeway Street is absolutely chockers. The existing Area 3 is very narrow and creates a bottleneck, and as we've already talked about, it makes it difficult if you've got a small or timid dog because of the big bouncy dogs chasing balls and things like that, dashing around. They take up a lot of space in that area. The better layout would reduce the wear and tear on the grass, and that's very significant at the moment. That area there, that area 3, is now becoming largely sand, and the fact that we are minimising watering because we're now a gold watering, what's it called? Gold standard watering, means that the grass is not recovering as it used to. So this proposal, I think it's a modified proposal, so it's not looking at the entire area in Graham's hand-drawn map. I think it's a very sensitive and a very good compromise. It includes the strong safety buffers with the 50-metre setback to the shared path on the western side and the 100-metre set.
Thank you, Councillor Gadsby. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple more points. Since we put this dog off-lead area in place a number of years ago, there's been park runners come to Lake Claremont, and there's been a lot of school cross-countries. I'm not sure if park run goes through the middle of the dog off-lead area. It does, and so do school cross-countries. And in the narrow areas, if you've got a dog and you've got 100 people coming at you, it's too narrow. We need it to be wider. The other issue I have is sweeping magpies, and by taking it out another 10 metres, the magpies will be much happier if the dogs are to the west, especially if we go at the northern end and all the way down. It's away from where the trees are, and the magpies will be by Nedlands. There's a large number of dogs that come into the north of that from Nedlands, and they would be in the hundreds. And there was mention of Mount Claremont Oval and McLagan Park being other dog off-lead areas. Both are not fenced, both are near busy roads, and people don't like taking dogs there because the dogs run onto the road. Monday's paper, there was a whole story about a dog being hit and the impact on people watching it being hit by a dog in Dr. Andrew Miller's little piece every week. So dog off-lead areas need to be properly fenced, and since we fenced Davies and Alfred Road dog off-lead area, the numbers have increased somewhat. By increasing down to the goalposts, our rangers won't be so busy booking people with infringements for that 20 metres that has kept them very busy for the last 10 years. It looks like it should be dog off-lead. People don't realise, and large numbers of people have been infringed there by surprise. And Scott, at the moment, it used to be available 24/7. Now it's not available from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m, which is all the daylight hours at the moment. So if you want to walk your dog, you have to do it in the dark at Scott. If you have a larger dog, they need to run. There is no other place you can allow them to run. McLagan and Mount Claremont aren't suitable. Our off-lead area is the only place they can run, and if there's large numbers of dogs running, we've heard there's issues. A bit of space will give them much better, and better exercise dogs lead to better behaved dogs, and that's what we like to see in Claremont. I was regularly saw Mr. Potter around the lake, and I was very sad to hear tonight that he's no longer here, and he was a perfect example of the benefits of having a sociable dog off-lead area, and I pass my condolences to his family and friends, and I used to chat to him often, but my dog wasn't very kind to his dog, so. I'm very sad he wasn't here to see this through tonight. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to speak against Councillor Brown. Here we go.
For the record, I guess. I've made my bed, so I've got to sleep in it, I guess. I thought about it. I appreciate the compromise. I think it's a good compromise, and doubling down on how hated I'll be. I am one of those park runners that run at you, Councillor Franklin's, early on Sunday mornings, so apologies. But yeah, I guess for me, look, this area, you can still walk your dog. $1,000 proposed for this. I'm glad to see there's some trees in there. Personally, I'd rather see that $22,000 spent purely on trees and greenery. But yes, I don't support this alternate motion. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone like to speak for? Or all spoken out on this one? Anyone like to speak against? I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried with 1%. Councillor Brown. To stay or exit stage left, whatever you prefer. Of course. Item 14, announcements. Councillor Brown.
Apart from park running at Councillor Franklin, not too much. I think we've had a workshop in between the last meeting, from memory, but we had the special council meeting. Other than that, we've been busy getting to the end of financial year. Thank you.
Councillor Swan.
Very much the same as Councillor Brown. I think I attended the workshop, couldn't make the special council meeting, and yes, busy end of financial year. Well, thank you.
Councillor Gertzi.
I attended the History in a Coffee Cup, and which is, as usual, was packed out and very interesting. It's always very interesting. I attended the workshop, the special council meeting, and the Freshwater Bay Primary School board meeting.
Councillor Gertzi, what was the history in the coffee cup? Councillor, that's okay. We'll come back to Councillor Gertzi. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you. I attended the forums and the special budget workshop council meetings. I would like to welcome John. This is your first ordinary council meeting, and lovely to have you on board. And farewelling Hazreen. It's very... and actuals last night, and they're almost together on very close lines. So your predictions and budget expenditure and our actual expenditure are very close. And I've never seen the lines so close together. So thank you very much for your great work.
Excuse me, Mr. Kettner, it's not your time, sir. Councillor Gertzi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The History in a Coffee Cup, which was so interesting. ...1950s, the community didn't want these 4 Aboriginal children to attend the school, and the teacher stood up against the community and allowed the children to attend. And so one of the speakers that was actually speaking was the daughter of one of these 4 children, and the other speaker was the daughter of the school teacher that had allowed it. So it was a really lovely history of how times have changed in schools in Western Australia.
Thank you, Councillor Gertzi. And Councillor Gauthier, was it held at the museum or St Aidan's?
This one was at the museum,
At the museum.
but which is capped at 60 people, and so the staff have to leave the building because that would make 62 people. The St Aidan's one was about 120 people. So, I mean, that was just amazing. It's amazing how popular they are.
Thank you. Thanks for the explanation. Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I attended the Roadwise meeting and we discussed advancement on treatments for roads and specifically the ones that need resurfacing. So, we discussed just the outline of Shenton Road and how it might look. So we've got some exciting things that mainly with cars, sometimes with each other, and the stats show that maybe we should be, instead of concentrating a lot on cars having accidents, what Claremont needs to do more than other councils is look at bikes, e-bikes and pedestrian safety. So it was an interesting stat. 3 in 5 hospitalisations involved a bike rider, pedestrian or e-bike or Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor May. Deputy Mayor Kelly, what have you been up to, sir?
Oh, I just want to know how Councillor Goetze can always get to the coffee cup talks and nobody else can. You must have a special invitation, I think, because it's booked out every time I try to go. Look, mine are mainly, I represent the council on the Central Metropolitan Zone, so we had a Central Metropolitan Zone meeting a couple of weeks ago. And I also obviously attended the National General Assembly and sat through 300 plus notices of motion. And I've got to say, I'm not necessarily breaking my neck to ever go again. I think that was just about enough for me. But it does give you a good impression of what's happening on the Eastern Seaboard in the business of local government. It's highly politicised. Many of those 360 de facto, that becomes the policy position of the debate, and it's pretty clear, there was motions in relation to taxing mining companies and those sorts of matters, which were outside of the jurisdiction of local government by and large. So, but nonetheless, I mean, it was I think a really worthwhile event, and I was pleased to introduce the mayor to a good number of representatives from both on the Alga board and also from around Australia, but also particularly Western Australia. I think there were over 100 delegates from Western Australia, and the association had a special function on the Tuesday evening with a number of local federal politicians there, so it was an opportunity to lobby on behalf of councils in respect to federal members as well. So the quality of the presentations outside of the motions took up basically 2 half days, so it's a good chunk of the time. Fortunately, the Mayor was able to go attend the Mayor and President's only event with the Council of Australian Government, I think it's called, So that was particularly worthwhile, I think, as well. And apart from this special council meeting and this one, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Kelly. Councillor Fernandez.
Yep. Pretty quiet month, so just at the concept forum and the council meeting, I have to thank Councillor Graham for attending the Walker Central Zone meeting in my absence. Thanks. And I completed one more unit of the local government diploma, so 8 more units left to go.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Since I saw you all last, not including the special budget council meeting, attended the youth photo competition, the tourism workshop, volunteer thank you, the Western Central Metropolitan Zone meeting, which was fascinating, and of course the special budget council meeting. And thanks to a very efficient special council meeting, budget meeting, I was able to race back to the Claremont Tennis Club and listen to the end of a talk that was being given by the Naval Historian Society, and it was a fascinating story. I don't know if you've heard of the Emden. It was a German ship left to cause havoc around this area in the First World War. The Anzacs were delayed in our battle as a country after Federation, which we won. But the story was about his trip back to Germany via Africa. It was just a fascinating story. I reckon it'll be a movie in no time at all. But great talk. No, the Sydney sunk the. This was the first Sydney, not the second Sydney. The first Sydney from the First World War sunk the Emden. Was subject to a royal commission because the Emden commander said that he waved the yellow flag, and we kept bombing him. But
Pieces of history tonight. Yeah, absolutely. With endorse what Deputy Mayor Kelly said about going to in all ways against the conversations I had and what I listened to and saw. The infrastructure that's kind of outsized that base, we can certainly hold our head high in terms of the way that we conduct ourselves as a council, and also what this budget means going forward for the community over the next 10 years. We've got some work to do, some great work to do in terms of the future planning of this community. I know that the CEO is very focused on helping us achieve what Claremont looks like over the next 5 to 10 years. In terms of the political class side, met with Kate Cheney. I also met with the One Nation Senator who visited us on Anzac Day here as well. They were both very hospitable towards me. At the Monday event, it was just amazing. On the Tuesday night drinks, as Deputy Mayor Kelly said, another 3 members from Western Australia from the Labor Party were present. And then again, the Governor-General spoke, and further ministers, Minister King and others also spoke. So the ministerial representation was absolutely outstanding, as well as the representation from federal members of Western Australia. as well. Thank the CEO also for taking the time, in your first 4 weeks to attend with the Deputy Mayor and myself. On a personal note, thanking the Deputy Mayor for your introductions, Paul. Thank you for that. On another note, just like to acknowledge the Director of Planning, interim, acting, Ross Montgomery. Ross, I understand this is your last OCM tonight. Thank you for your stewardship at very short notice to respond to the needs of so we'll say a further thank you if you allow us after the OCM's finished, if you could just stay for a while with us. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Well, we have mentioned Hazrain. Hazrain, I hope you don't feel left out from the thank you. Stay for a moment after the OCM. And it's not lost on the Deputy Mayor or myself that the budget's passed unanimously. It's a real credit to all of the administration, including Mr. Kettner there, in terms of all of the input that the administration had to the budget. A unanimous vote on the budget, as we read in the paper, is not a sure thing as you go around local government. So thank you. 15 elected members' motions of which previous notice has been given. Nil. 16 new business of an urgent nature. Nil. And a motion to close the doors. That in accordance with section 5.2.32 of the Local Government Act 1995, the meeting is closed to members of the public with the following subsections applicable. Section 5.23, brackets 4, brackets B, information relating to the personal affairs of an individual. A mover and a seconder. Moved. Moved Councillor Brown and seconded. Second, we've got a second to close the doors? Yep. Councillor Fernandez? Yep. Okay, all those in favour? Carried, no dissent. Okay, the officer's recommendation was carried. Item 18, future meeting of the Council, Tuesday the 28th of July 2026 at 7 p.m. And 19, we declare the meeting closed at 8:56. Cool. There you go. Okay, mate.